Stop paying for your dreams with your savings. Do this instead. Do you ever feel like every purchase is draining your savings? Like you're working just to pay the bills instead of actually living the life that you want? Most people count their expenses in dollars, but that's why money always feels tight. In this week's video, we're going to be talking about why employees struggle with money and how entrepreneurs think differently. Also, how to stop feeling that every purchase is a sacrifice. Also, I'll be sharing with you a surprising way to make big purchases like a new car or a coaching investment without stress, and how to measure your expenses in a way that actually grows your wealth, not drains it. This isn't about budgeting harder, it's about shifting your mindset about money so that money is actually working for you. These are the lessons that I learned that allowed me to make $10,000 a month in my early 20s and helped our family business to grow to over $500,000 in sales as a health educator. So what we're talking about is one of the biggest lessons that I learned from one of my first millionaire mentors. His name was Jimmy Smith. And Jimmy Smith earned over $90 million in his health education business. And he had a wealth of ideas. But one of them that I learned in my early 20s that just stuck with me, it was very different. And he said, learn to stop counting your expenses in dollars and start counting expenses in sales. This was really new to me because what he was basically explaining is when he had this, I think he had like a $40,000 watch. He's like, this watch doesn't cost $40,000. It costs, and he said the number was like X amount of sales. And he's saying the car that I drive, it doesn't cost this amount, it costs this many sales. And he was teaching us to train our mind to recognize that you don't have to pay for all of these expenses by the dollars in your bank account, in your savings, in your wallet, in your purse. You're able to pay from the sales you make in your business. And that shifted my mindset fundamentally about how I invest money. Because no longer am I limited to whatever savings accounts that I have. Now I'm shifting my focus to seeing creative ways to be able to make resources to solve problems at scale, to serve others. And then by adding value to the marketplace, that's what we get paid for. So that's the first concept that was really helpful. You know, it's not just Jimmy Smith who taught this concept. Even Jesus himself understood this principle. In Matthew 13, verse 45, the scripture says, again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man seeking goodly pearls. Now pause. What did God just say? Did he just say what I think he did? He said the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man. That's weird, right? What is a merchant man? He sells stuff. He's a salesman. But now Jesus is saying the kingdom of heaven, eternity, or the principles of heaven, it's like a salesperson who sells stuff. Like that seems very bizarre, and it doesn't really fit in many people's minds about Jesus and money or sales. In fact, I was preaching a sermon at church one day, and I was like, have you guys ever noticed that Jesus used a lot of business or financial symbols or metaphors to illustrate kingdom principles? I'm like, how many of you have noticed that? And it was like all but two people in the room. I'm like, really? Okay, well, let's go through. And I was taking them through different parables. Every shepherd was a business owner. Every farmer was a business owner. And so many times he talks parable after parable about finances or about money or about these different things. And then what he says in the next verse, this is what really opened my eyes. This merchantman, he's looking for goodly pearls, who, when he had found the one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. So a principle that we see here from this verse is that Jesus taught the way that you buy what you desire is by selling what you have. And I would submit to you that selling is a good idea because selling is a God idea. In fact, selling is God's established plan for you to be able to buy what you desire. Let's look at housing. If you got a mortgage, or if you're renting, if you're paying for a housing, instead of seeing like what how much to pay for it in the expenses, like do I have enough money? It's really by selling what you have. And everyone here, if you're listening to me, chances are you have a health knowledge, you have a passion for health, you have an experience in health in some form, or a willingness to acquire skills in that. So by learning how to sell your health knowledge, the solutions to health problems, this is the key to be able to buy what you desire. Whether it's a new vehicle, whether it, like I wanted a recording studio. Here I'm in a recording studio. It's a room that's dedicated fully to this. Now, in order to pay for this home, it's a good size home. It's a lot bigger than what I would need if I was just living for myself. But the reason why I invested in this property is because I wanted a recording studio. That was one of the most important things we were looking for. I wanted to be able to house other people that they could also, who believe in the mission and want to be able to work together and get our message out to empower health educators to get your message to the masses. And in order to do that, I had to pay more for housing. But instead of thinking, oh, that is out of my budget, start looking at, okay, how many sales are needed to make in order to invest in a home with more bathrooms and with more rooms than I would need for myself. So this is a fundamental mindset shift that Jesus is showing us, is that if we're struggling financially, it's not a money problem, it's a sales problem. Because even when we're employees and we're trading time for money, you're still selling your time. And what is interesting to me is any time that we are selling our time, whether we're doing one-on-one sessions or one-on-one client work, or if we are, or if we're working on a salary or in a career or for a corporation, whatever it is, if we're working for our time, even service-based businesses, you've got to trade your time for money. The ways that you disconnect your income generation from your time is by creating a product or a program. So by you productizing your service, by creating a coaching program, a group coaching program where you could do one-to-many, creating a signature speech where you could also sell one-to-many, or a online course or a book, by being able to, you could productize your service by putting those steps of your service into a book, and you have educational products. So these are, or if you have supplements, you have physical like equipment. These are ways that product-based businesses are infinitely scalable. Sometimes the service-based businesses are a little harder to do when you have to actually trade your time for money. What you're doing is you're linking, you are restricting your income generation to the smallest resource that you possibly have. So instead, what we want to learn to do is disconnect that by creating a product or program. And by being able to sell those, it allows you to buy what you desire. You won't have a financial issue. A lot of the cost of living has been skyrocketing since COVID, and gases were going up, and utilities is increasing, housing is increasing, and none of that is really a problem if you're able to learn the skills to pay the bills. What are the high income skills? Like sales, like marketing, like coaching, like understanding digital marketing or AI automation, or learning these high income skills today, or being able to sell from stage where you can get paid $10,000 for a 45-minute speech. Or you could, like we've been able to make $26,500 from one free Zoom that I did with just a small group of people. And that one speech has brought in over $26,000. So when you learn the skill to be able to sell and learn to sell well and serve in a way that people want to refer their friends, then this is what helps you to be able to buy what you desire. The expenses don't really become a problem. It's not it's not a money problem. It's a sales problem. And by learning to identify correctly how we think about our expenses, it really changes the game. As an entrepreneur, you have a vehicle that is unlike any other like income generation tool out there, that there's infinite creative abilities. There's no limit to what you can create, who you can serve, and who you can sell to, which is very powerful. So I was looking, I saw this news clip, and they were talking about the salary needed to live comfortably in America. And as a single adult, it was $94,000. Now, I don't fully understand what their definition of comfortably is, but I thought this was interesting. national average was about $93,000 throughout the nation. I mean, you've got San Francisco and New York, and you've got different places. I mean, the cost of living is incredibly high. Housing is at its all-time peaks, and groceries have increased because the trade routes are harder and harder, and with all these tariffs in the government, I mean, just prices are going up. But why isn't the wages or salaries also increasing as well? So if you have 2 working adults and 2 children, they estimated $209,000 just to live comfortably throughout America. Now, there's a lot of Americans that are not making that amount. So a lot of Americans are not living comfortably. And it breaks my heart to be able to see that many Americans are not financially at a place. They're living so paycheck to paycheck that a $500 medical expense or crisis would not allow them to, they wouldn't be able to handle it because they don't have the rainy day funds, or they don't have the money in the bank to handle something like that. So is it okay if I share with you how you can solve that problem for yourself? If it's going to be about $100,000 to $200,000 to live comfortably, how do we do that? Can I share with you the marketing math of what that would look like in your business to be able to generate, let's say, at least a 6-figure business? Yes, please. Okay, cool. So here's a 6-figure math. Think about, let's say you found the big key here is solve problems for rich people, solve health problems for wealthy people, and it's very difficult to start a profitable business selling to homeless people. Don't make your target audience the people who don't have money. That's a very key thing here. And by being able to solve health problems for the wealthy, you can use the increase of resources to be able to fund causes that you care about that are able to help other classes in different marginalized groups. But to start, so many people want to lower their prices, say, well, I want my programs to be affordable so poor people can afford it, so everyone can afford it. But what that does for you is it makes it harder for you to have the resources to scale your equipment, your team, your mentorship, your guidance, your software, pay for ads. Like, it's harder for you to scale your impact if you don't have the resources. So one thing that another mentor of mine said, it really stuck with me. He said, one of the best ways to help the poor is to decide to not be one of them. And I was thinking, like, wow, that hit me differently, because I realized, well, I mean, I've served people without resources and I've served people with resources. It's so much easier to serve people with resources than without. So here's a 6-figure math. You solve a health problem for wealthy people that you can charge at least, I would recommend, $3,000. If you have a $3,000 offer a program that you're able to help them with, which is actually easier than you think. It's more simple than we think about it. But let's say you have a $3,000 program, right? And you make 3 sales in a month. That's $9,000 a month that you're making just with 3 people. And if you have $9,000 a month times 12 months in the year, then congratulations, you've got $108,000 a year that you have in your business. So this is it's empowering once you realize that you just need 3 sales a month. It's not having a large volume in order to make this possible. Now let me ask you, do you think that out of 8 billion people in this world, that it's in the realm of possibility for you to find just 3 people in an entire month who are interested in paying you to help transform their life? Type yes in the chat if you think that it is possible, because there's billions of people with a B, and that's how with 3 sales you have a 6-figure business. So now you could at least live comfortably in America. Now, what about if you wanted to go further? Where one thing that I find is so amazing is once you start solving some of your primary, your primal needs of survival, of housing, shelter, and food, once you start getting over those basic needs, then it allows you to awaken so many more possibilities of serving people at different capacities, different philanthropy options, different contribution or causes or nonprofits. It makes it so much easier when you start thinking, well, what other problems can I solve in life? So let's say you didn't want to stop at 6 figures. Let's say you wanted to go to 7 figures. What does the $1 million math look like? You take the same things that helped you to get 3 sales and you add a 0. Now, instead of doing 3 sales a month, you're doing 30. You do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And with 30 sales a month, you're making $90,000 a month. And then with 12 months, that's $1,080,000 a year. So this is a simplified math to help understand examples of what's possible. In fact, that's exactly what happened with Dr. Kendra Lee. Before she came to my program, she was having a hard time selling. She was charging $1,500 for one-on-one coaching, and people were thinking it's too expensive. They can't afford it, and why is she charging that? And she was having a hard time selling her. I think it was like a $200 group program. And what I did with her is I helped her to get really clear on who's a profitable person for her to serve, what is a profitable problem, and by getting clear on that, I encouraged her, let's raise your price. We doubled her price and went to $3,000. And she's like, $3,000? I'm having a hard time selling a one-on-one program for $1,500. Who's going to buy for $3,000? And I was saying, we're not just going to increase your price, we're going to increase the value. And we're going to increase your ability to communicate the value in your program, which is sales, which is what we're talking about, learning to count your expenses in sales. So she's like, all right. So she increased her value, and she's been able to fill her programs. And even in her group program, what she likes doing with in person, she has a wellness center, and we had her double her price there. So now she's selling for $500, and she was able to fill her programs month after month whenever she wanted to do it. She now had the ability to be able to do that as we got very clear on what are the key parts, and what I like to call now a marketing map. We mapped out for her who is she serving, what is the problem, what is the program, what is the profitable price, and we got clear on we mapped this out for her. So she was able to sell her first $3,000 program. She doubled it. She was able to then, in one call, she had 3 people sign up for her program. The mother was like, I need this, my husband needs this, my daughter needs this. We all 3 want to be in. And then she was able to get her first international clients, where she thought she was just confined to her island, but she realized that her mission and reach is even beyond the doors of her front door, or the shores of her front doors. And she now has an international clients in her program because I taught her how to structure her program in a way that she's able to infinitely scale it, that there's no limit to who she's able to help and to serve. So that was a game changer for her. Now she's starting to learn how to count her sales, how to count her expenses in sales rather than dollars. So she got on our coaching call, and she was sharing this win, and she mentioned how her van stopped working. And I don't remember what happened, if it went kaput, or if it was a crash, if it was just old. I don't know what happened, but her van stopped working. She was in a need of a van, right? And how many of you have ever been having vehicle problems? If you don't have a functional vehicle, it can create a crisis. It could be a challenge, right? But this didn't have to be a crisis for her, because she understood to count her expenses in sales. So what did she do? She made an offer. She was going to she created an educational program, and she made an offer. It was to the government, and she was able to deliver on that program. And with the sales, the money she made from the sales, she was able to buy her car and replace the van. She got a better van than she had before. So even with placing orders, like with the van that we have, it was bought through the sales of our business. It's not a $11,000 van. It's just how many sales we had to make in order to purchase that. So it really shifts our perspective, because when you are in need of funds, you make more offers. And by making more offers to the right people who can actually pull out of pocket and pay, then it starts to cover the expenses that you have in your life, whether it's housing or vehicles or food or maybe a medical expense. There's less of a crisis or emergencies when you are making offers consistently. And the offer you don't make is the offer they can't take. So if you've never sold a $3,000 offer before, then chances are, or higher, then chances are it's because you don't have a $3,000 offer. Because if you don't make the offer, then they can't take it. So that's something that is really a game changer. In fact, if you like help to be able to identify who's that profitable person, then you could use our AI. I've put together a tool that allows you to create your health marketing map. And this health marketing map is a single page document that is designed to get you very clear on who's a profitable person you're going to serve, what's a profitable health problem you're going to solve, what is that profitable program, that how can you package the knowledge you already have or can quickly acquire into a program, a step-by-step process to be able to sell these $3,000 offers. And it's free. It's my free gift to you. Just go to freegiftfromenoch.com/map. Make sure you have www in there, and it will take you to my health marketing map maker. This is a gift that I want to give to you. But what happened too is, like, once we went through this process with Dr. Kendra Lee, as I mentioned before, once your financial areas are like problems are solved, she told me before joining our program was that if I don't figure out this marketing and sales part, how to get more paying clients, I'm gonna have to shut down my doors. And I don't want to do that, because she was spending more than her business was making. So, I mean, how many times can we relate where maybe we're coming from our savings, or maybe we're dipping into maybe it's our career that's funding it, or maybe it's a spouse that's funding our dreams or goals right now, or there's retirement, or you see that there's a depleting resource, a limited resource that's going down, paying for your life, just trying to get ahead, but you want to be able to have not just enough to survive, you want to have more than enough to provide for others, to create a financial fortress around your family. And she got on another one of our challenges, and these are the stories that I love the most, is she got on our challenge and said, because of the sales in my business, now we are able to provide a Christian education for my granddaughter. And we can help contribute to her education to get better quality education, which before that would have been difficult if you're if you're drowning in bills and having a hard time to keep your doors open, to now being able to have more than enough to provide for the needs of others. Does that make sense? How many of you want to be providers for other people you care about? Type providers in the chat, because this is what happens when you stop counting your expenses in dollars and you start counting your expenses in sales. So the second big idea is learning the difference between an expense and an investment. And it seems simple, but this is a fundamental shift of how we think about things. Robert Kiyosaki, he's the author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he's helped a lot of people to understand these new concepts, where he mentioned that his rich dad taught him lessons that were very different than his poor dad. How his poor dad viewed money, how his poor dad viewed value and work and effort, it was just very different contrast of advice that he was getting. So one thing that he realized in this pattern, he talks about in his book, is that the poor think, I can't afford, and the rich think, how can I afford? Now I want you to notice this is a difference of, it's a thought where the poor often say, like, everything's too expensive. It's like, this costs a lot of money. And one of the first questions that they think whenever filtering through, and the same thing with me, is like, before I started understanding these concepts as an entrepreneur, I would often think, okay, here's an opportunity, here's a tool, here's an equipment, here's a skill. My first thing is like, how much does it cost? And by focusing so much on the cost, I talked myself out of it. I'm like, oh, I can't afford that. And it's so fascinating, because I'll tell you a story I'm not very proud of, but I was sending out DVDs. I had my health lectures and classes and trainings, and I was sending out DVDs at people, and I was trying to do it for free. But the thought was, I can't afford the boxes or the shipping to go send it out to people. So I was thinking, how could I make my own? And this is another lesson that I learned, is that poor people are always trying to do it themselves. Like the DIY mentality, where it's like, do it myself. I'd rather save money and waste my time. And so I went to a restaurant, and I asked them permission to use the recycled boxes to be able to create my own boxes. I went on YouTube and I found out, how do I make my own shipping boxes? And this guy was showing, he had this little perforator tool. It looked like a pizza cutter with a bunch of like teeth. And then he could perforate these boxes and make them into these awesome shapes. So I'm like, well, I can't afford the boxes, so let me go get the recycled boxes. I cut them up, and then I was able to turn them into from scratch. And then I couldn't afford having outsourcing the printing and the duplication of the DVDs, so I duplicated myself. I spent hours, long nights, duplicating literally thousands and thousands of DVDs and sending them out to people. And so I duplicate all those, and then we got to put them in there. We had an assembly line together, and there was a few of us. There's like 7 or 8 of us who are doing everything from scratch, and we're sending them out to people. And then after going through all that work, one of the people who was helping, his name was Jesus. He's like, why are we doing all of this? Why don't we just get like this? There's shipping labels, there's shipping containers, packages that we could put them in. I was like, oh, I can't afford those. He's like, can't afford it? I'll buy them. And so on Amazon, they were like 23 cents a package. They're not a lot, but here I was thinking, I can't afford it. And it had nothing to do with the money, because as soon as he bought one and we put them in there, we're like, wow, this is a lot easier. Take the DVDs, slip them in there, mail them out, slap a label on it, and you're good to go. And then I started buying those ever since. So what I realized, it's not that I couldn't afford it, it's that I fundamentally had the view that I can't afford it, it's too expensive, because that's the lens by which I was learning to filter life and making those financial decisions. But by assuming I can't afford now made my, it cut off all the resourcefulness that I could have had in order to find a way. And by thinking, instead of cutting a check for speed, cutting a check to cut the line, we end up spending so much of our time, we're so busy doing things the hard way that we don't learn that there is an easier way. And like, I'll be honest, like I was a recovering heartaholic. I would do things that were hard. Now I am an easyologist. What is an easyologist? Someone who studies the art and the science of ease, learning that there are easier ways to live. There are easier ways to serve people. There's easier ways to monetize your knowledge or to pay your bills. And instead of, like, what I find is so fascinating in a way that kind of breaks my heart is that so many health educators like myself are so busy being stuck, spending so much time on these things that are hard, that are not working, that we don't allow ourselves the time to invest in learning a method that does work, in learning a method that could actually change our life for the rest of our life. And so, like, sometimes this busy work is stealing from our life's work. So what I realize is that wealthy people, they value their time more than they value the money. They see time lost can never be gathered again, but money spent can be made back. Money is replenishable, time is not. So I'd much rather cut a check for speed. Let me go pay for a mentor who I can download decades of their experience in days. And by becoming that person who's willing to invest in others, it helped me to believe and see that, wow, there's actually there's a whole world of people who are also willing to invest in a mentor like yourself who wants to cut the check for speed. So a lot of times we tend to not value the knowledge that we have, the experience we have, but you are someone else's lifeline. Like, there's someone who specializes their time, attention, knowledge, skills in their business, in their life, in different directions. But when it comes to your specialized health knowledge, they don't have that. And they don't have the time, the desire to go into that deep experience and journey that your life has been about health. So they'd rather cut a check, at least $3,000, to be able to learn from you what you've invested in yourself. So that is something that is so empowering. And the thing is, I had a hard time believing that people would pay me for my, like, $1,000 or even $500 for my advice until I started to pay $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. And so an expense is a cost that depletes your resources without creating future value. That's an expense. Like a lot of cars tend to be an expense. If it's not making you money, it's an expense. Whereas an investment is a cost that adds to your resources while creating future value towards your vision. And you're able to invest your time, your money, your attention, your influence. All of these are resources that we're able to invest in. When I didn't have the money, I invested my time to learn from mentors and to go to seminars, to read from books, to listen to podcasts, to invest in courses and go through those. And by investing my time, by paying attention, that started acquiring skills and shifting my thoughts to then now I can start making more sales, breaking sales records, and having the sales for my business to pay for my expenses or pay off my debts and eventually my vehicles and eventually my housing, eventually my groceries, and then things start shifting. But it doesn't shift until you shift. So another lesson that I learned from Myron Golden was another example. See, he would talk about this mastermind and he's like, his mastermind is $55,000 to join. And I heard about it, I saw it, but I thought I couldn't afford joining the mastermind. So but the wild thing is I had the money in the bank. The cash was in the bank account, but I've never invested at something at that level before. So it was just thinking like, okay, well, I can't afford that. So I passed on it. Instead, joined, I believe it was his $27,000 group coaching program. And as I was in there, I was learning a lot. I was gaining some value. I was understanding concepts that I've never heard before and connecting with industry leaders also. And I began to realize that this is good. I want to join the next thing with the mastermind, but it doesn't transfer over. So then at that point, I became the person who could see that, oh, I could actually afford that and then see the return on investment and shift in my perspective. So then I joined the mastermind. And joining that mastermind, I know for a fact that I wouldn't have had that $26,500 speaking engagement if it wasn't for the lessons I learned in the mastermind. Learning those principles has also allowed me to have my first $40,000 day. Those concepts that I have learned in that mastermind, I know are going to carry with me for the rest of my life, where it's not just the return in a month or in 3 months or the first year, but even understanding what is the lifetime return on investment. There's no number that I know that I can put a price to that. But in the beginning, there's a lot of new shifts that had to be made. One of I remember back when I was working in Washington D.C. with the health ministry that was over there, and we were sharing health programs on Capitol Hill. And we were going to the senators, the congressmen, and we were doing health fairs, and we were doing health education. But I remember this ministry just had resources. They were able to get camera equipment, top talent, from speakers to there's a video editor who did video editing for the Queen of England over in Australia, and when she was in Australia, and people who led out teams of hundreds of people, they're all part of this. I'm like, wow, they're attracting good quality talent, people with millions of influence when they speak, and also they had resources to buy tens of thousands of dollars equipment. And things were more convenient, things were faster, things were more effective. It was very different than anything that I've seen as far as service goes. So I had the opportunity to be in the truck with the director of this ministry. And I asked him, I'm like, so you're in ministry, how is it that you have so much resources where most of the health speakers, health educators that I know, they're broke? Like, what's going on here? And he took me, we were in Washington, D.C., and around Capitol Hill. He went a few blocks out, and he showed me this neighborhood. It's a very affluent neighborhood, and he's like, see that house? That's where I grew up. I came from a family of politicians. My family was wealthy. And he mentioned that in the Bible, there are biblical financial principles. When you understand those financial principles, money is a result. When you disregard or don't know the financial principles, lack of money is also a result. I was like, what? I didn't realize that there were financial principles. Then he went a couple blocks down the street and he took me to this country club, which I've never heard of a country club before now. He says, see that country club? They charge $250,000 to be a part of that country club. And I was like, $250,000? That's a price. You could buy an entire house with that. Who in their right mind would pay $250,000 for a club? And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, Enoch, wealthy people value things differently than poor people. Wealthy people value relationships more than money. And he explained to me how, sure, it's 250,000, but in that membership, you have access to leaders who have large resources of influence, of money, of equipment or connections, and you're able to speak to people there as peers, as equals. They have their hair down, where they're not constantly being bombarded by requests and people, and you're able to connect with them, and you're able to strike deals with people that one deal might be worth a $5 million deal. And he mentioned that before he was in ministry, he also had a successful construction company that was multi-million-dollar construction jobs over in Washington, D.C. And then he began to show me that even $250,000 is not an expense, it's an investment. And I just, it was one of the first times I was awakened to the realization that really it's not about how much it costs, it's about what is the return on the investment. What is the value that we'll get from it? So I realized that wealthy people are not focused like, how much does it cost? What's it cost? What's the price? Get to the price. They're more thinking, what is the value that I'm going to get from it? And then I remember even like joining Myron Golden's inner circle. I was counseling with Kathy, and I was saying like, I think this could be good for us. I don't know if it would be a good idea to do it. She's like, all right, let's write the pros and cons. Here are the pros, and what are the cons? The cons is it costs a lot. She's like, that's not a con. If that's the con, then let's go for it. Let's do that. And then that was so empowering because I realized I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. The price was really the only concern, but the value far outweighs the price. So that's when things started opening up. And then we went ahead and went forward. So what I'm sharing with you is that this is a big shift. In fact, another lesson that Myron Golden taught was he shared how employees think about money differently than entrepreneurs, whereas employees, they feel that everything is too expensive. I can't afford it, and everything costs too much, and it's hard. Why? Because they feel like they are paying everything out of their life, because they are. Because time is a stuff that life is made out of. So let's say a $10,000 purchase, if you're trading your time for money, you're thinking about, okay, how many months of my life am I going to have to pay in order to afford this? So you're thinking about it, every expense to you is like a life altering or like a life counting moments, these large purchases. And whereas entrepreneurs, they're not paying out of their time, they're not paying out of their life, they're paying out of their innovation. They're paying out of their creativity, because all we got to do if we want to go buy something, we make an offer. And by saying, well, how many sales do I need to make in order to cover those costs? And if you look at our innovation, when I say innovation, I mean your ability to bring a solution to someone's health problems. Your ability to be able to package your health knowledge in a way that someone can go through a program, whether you're creating a framework, and whether you're able to create a course or a book or a coaching program. This is innovation. We are innovators, we're creators. I believe that God created us to make stuff, and He created us to create stuff, and business is God's vehicle to be able to create and make solutions for other people. And the thing is, when you're counting your expenses in sales instead of dollars, then there's no limit to when you as an employee, when I make a purchase and I buy something, I need to go work more hours in order to replenish that. But as an entrepreneur, when I want to invest, let's say in a $17,000 coaching program, which I did, I want to learn about Facebook ads, email marketing, and some other concepts. When I invested in a $17,000 program, then I'm thinking, okay, well, let's say I have a $2,000 course. How many of those do I need to sell in order to pay for that coaching program? And the answer is just 8 sales. if I can get, or let's say 9 sales, if I can get 9 sales, that would more than cover the cost. Or if I have a $10,000 program, then 2 sales that have already covered. So do I think that I can get 2 sales from the advice that I received from this coach? Am I going to be able to increase 2 sales? Absolutely. I got way more than 2 sales in that coaching program, and he helped me to get a lot of clarity. So it's not too expensive. It's a matter of thinking, okay, this is what is going to be the return on investment. I'm paying for it not out of the dollars, but out of my innovation, paying for it out of the creativity. And once that's paid for, guess what? Do I have less creativity and innovation than I had before I paid for it? No. Whereas an employee, I have less time than I did before. There's an endless amount of innovation. That's why I like to call my program, my $2,000 course, the program is Skills Unlimited, because you have unlimited skills. These high income skills allow you to unlock unlimited income potential. So by grasping this, it really changes things. So one other example is Regine. She was she saw that her course sales were going down, so I was sharing with her some one-to-many selling principles of how she could increase her sales. And I was sharing with her, go live and be able to share some of these concepts I've been teaching in the signature speech. So she said that she took my advice. She started going live when she was exercising, and she was already exercising, so might as well record while she's doing it. She's a fitness influencer. She said that video has 16,000 views, and I sold more courses on there than she did before. And she could trace out where the sales are coming from following the principles I've been sharing. But the cool thing about Regine is she went from selling a $200 course to her first $3,000 course. That was the first time in her entire career that she's been paid $3,000 for any one thing. And this is eye-opening when you're able to realize there's people out there who want what you have to offer. Not only that, shortly after, she was able to have her first $6,000 day. To be able to the shift that this does for you, to give you the calmness, the peace, the courage, the strength to be able to continue. Where she was on a call, she's like, I have a lot of followers, there's a lot of people, but it doesn't translate to a lot of dollars. And she was before coming to me, she was at a slope in her business, and she's like, it hasn't been this hard before. And she's like, each month I question if this is really if I want to continue, this is hard. But then she learned how to put together this health marketing map. We mapped out her program, her person, the pricing, and her presentation on how to share it. And she started getting more sales. And then even with one sale at $3,000, it's the same amount of effort to sell a $3,000 program as it is to sell a $300 program. The only difference is the price. So you still got to do the same emails, the videos, the content, the call, the message. You got to put together all that effort to sell a $300 thing as you do a $3,000 thing. So let's start there. So for her to sell one group coaching client, that would take 15 sales of her $200 course. So by being able to have this shift, she's like, oh, that the stress, the worry is gone. She's like, hey, I can do this. This makes sense. She's able to do a 30-minute free talk at her church, and she's able to invite people to a webinar, a masterclass that she does during the week, and where she goes through the signature speech that I worked with her on. And that's all. And then people are able to sign up. I believe she signed up 2 more clients through that process. And now it's not a wonder of where the bill is going to come from. But what happens is when you start counting your expenses in sales, everything starts changing. Are you guys starting to see how you could learn how to take the expenses you want and see how many sales is it going to take to be able to pay for that? And it really shifts being able to move forward. So the third thing that we'll look at, the third point here is what I would recommend everybody here do is identify your financial independence number. This is very helpful. If you don't know this already, it's important to have a goal, because Proverbs says, without a vision, the people perish. So let's have a vision for your finances. If you don't have a vision, then your finances will perish. There's a financial law of faith that Jesus said, according to your faith, be it unto you. And what this translates in wealth terms, that he was speaking to someone's health, but in wealth terms, that's your bank account is a direct reflection of your beliefs about money. And you'll never make more than whatever you think is a lot of money. So we want to get clear on what is your financial independence number. And what I mean by that is your financial independence is when you calculate what are your monthly living expenses. How much does it cost for you to pay monthly or your living expenses? And then when your passive income is able to cover the cost of your monthly living expenses, and congratulations, you've got financial independence, where you're no longer tied or tied down to a specific source of income or company or thing, where you have passive residual income coming into your business. This was a very powerful experience. So let's do an example, what this might look like. Let's say you have housing, it's $1,200, it's probably going to be a lot more than that by now. But let's be conservative here. Let's say your insurance for home or auto, it's $150, groceries, maybe $600 a month, utilities, $300, car payments, $400, cell phone, $50-ish, your travel, gas, rideshare, $250. You can see these numbers are fairly conservative. Total expenses we're looking at is $3,000, right? Well, this isn't a $3,000 monthly expense. This is one sale a month. You don't have to go out and make those 3,000. Can we click the next slide? There we go. It's just one sale a month. It's not that you have to go make the 3,000 to go pay, or if you're selling like $5 supplements, I mean, that's going to be a lot of supplements, these smaller priced items in order to cover that. But this can cover your expenses. And then one sale a month is able to provide you the security, the freedom to cover your bills. Now you could focus your time and attention on the other portions other than surviving. Now you're able to be in thriving mode. One of the lessons I learned from Dave MacArthur was he mentioned that every dollar you make in this health education business represents a life that is transformed. Someone who's able to get out of pain, who's able to lose weight, who's able to extend their life and live longer and healthier. This is what these represent. And what he shared is that, see, Dave MacArthur made $12 million on the back of a signature speech and teaching about health. And another concept that he expressed, in the comments, that's amazing we get to do that for people. I totally agree. It's something you could feel good about. Sales isn't something you do to someone. Sales is something you do for someone. Because understand, anytime you sell your health programs, you're introducing people to a new normal. There's a gap between where they are now and where they want to be, and you're helping them to close that gap through your products, your program, your coaching, your course, your book, whatever it is, your speech. So that's something to feel good about, to honor and realize that the sales is a service that you get to do for the world. And another lesson that he shared is money isn't everything, but it's right up there with oxygen, right? You need it to survive. So even beyond that, if you knew that every dollar you make is a indication of the people's lives that you transform, then my question is, how much money would you like to make? What is your ideal lifestyle? What cost would you put on that? And we can see that if you write that down, it's going to be different than your financial independence number. Write down how much you want to make a month. Is that 10,000, 20,000? Think about people you want to employ in your team. This is one thing that one of my multiple business mentors have asked me is to put a number on that so that you are clear on what are the decisions you're making. So you're able to set goals. Think about your ideal schedule. Think about your dream team, your dream. Like I thought about my dream studio, your dream vehicle, or who are maybe you want a secretary, or you want kitchen help, maybe you want video editors, maybe you want technical people who can help you with doing tech setup. Like these things will cost money. So think about that. Instead of thinking just about my own expenses and what I get and what I need to be comfortable, think about how can you create a surplus so that you could provide for the families and needs of others. How can you involve others and employ people so that they can provide for their families? We can be a provider of providers. Does that make sense? So really write that down and think about it. And I remember I was attending an event at Funnel Hacking Live with Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson is a marketer. He's helped to create over like 2,000 millionaires with his ClickFunnels company. And he was on stage, and one thing that he was sharing is about the Beatles. They have, I don't really care for the Beatles music, but one of them was working on like additions to his home, and they wanted a swimming pool, and they had this joke where they're like, okay, let's write us a swimming pool. And what that meant is they were going to write a song, and by writing that song, that's what's going to pay for the swimming pool. So now when you're talking about living your dreams, then it's not really about how much is this going to cost, where do I get the money? It's just, okay, out of my innovation, out of my creativity, let me go create an offer that's going to cover those expenses. Let me go book a speaking engagement, get access to a new audience that now as I share there, then I'll make offers so that they're able to be introduced to how I could support others. Let me invest my time in learning to create a signature speech, to map out my marketing decisions, these marketing decisions, and that will open the door to be able to cover whatever, even beyond your monthly expenses. But what about fueling your dreams, the causes you care about, the missions that matter most to you? This is what it allows you to do. So number 3 is to identify your financial independence number. And now you have an actual goal where you could reward yourself. As you make certain sales, you can go invest in these goals that you have. And the last thing that I'll share is that one thing that I had to learn to do is learn to expect a return on investment. As we learn about this, there's doubt that creeps up, right? Like, well, I know that Enoch can do it because he's Enoch. Oh, Dr. Kendra Lee, she could do it because she's Kendra Lee, but I can't. I'm different, or I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, or nobody knows me. I don't have a following, and we come up with all of these, I would say they're decisions we've made about our situation. And what I've learned is that when I'm joining a coaching program, one of the reasons why I'm able to get a return on investment is because I have decided before joining that I'm going to get a return on investment. I'm not filling my mind with fear and wondering, oh, is it going to work for me? Is it gonna work? There's a verse in Proverbs 14:23, and Solomon says, in all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury. So here is a financial biblical principle that I want you to understand. He's showing that in all labor there's profit. What does that mean? That means there's no such thing as work that doesn't work. It's impossible for you to be able to put in work towards your health education business and it doesn't work for you. It's impossible for you to put the effort to make a signature speech and it doesn't help you and work. There's 2 works it's going to do. There's a work that it does for you, that in creating the income, the audience, the message, a platform that you desire, but there's also the work that it does on you. And if the work that you're doing is not working for you and creating the income that you're looking for, that means that the work is working on you to become the person who can be able to do what is required to have the work for them, to be able to have those high income results. So in my mind, what I began to realize is there's no such thing as work that doesn't work. It's impossible. So instead of before joining a program thinking, what if I go through all this effort and it doesn't work for me? Instead, I started to learn to ask, how life-changing will this be when it works? How awesome will it be when I create this speech, when I create this program and I share with someone and their life is transformed? And did I have doubts before putting together the program? Sure. But I wouldn't have been able to share with you Ray Janae's story, Dr. Kendra Lee's story, and our other clients if I didn't make the decision on, okay, I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to make an offer that could change someone's life for the rest of their life. I have skills and a knowledge in digital marketing, in selling from stage, in putting together programs, in holistic health education. By blending these things together, I could serve a group of people who are underserved and hardly anyone speaking to them. So by stepping forward in that direction, that's when things start to come to pieces, because the offer you don't make is the offer they can't take. So instead of doubting that if it's going to work or if this will happen, instead what I do is I will say, okay, I'm going to determine to be their number 1 success story. I'm going to be one of the best students that they've had, and that's a decision that I make. So many times when we hear different success stories, we hear that someone's thriving. Like, have you ever wondered why two people can come to the same events and one is able to get radical success quickly and the other one is still struggling in the same place that they were 5 months ago? Or two people can attend the same coaching program. One takes off and the other one's stuck. Read the same books, attend the same Zoom calls, learn the same message. One is able to run with it. The other one is struggling. Why? It's because we have this operating, there's like these two operating systems. And I wasn't going to talk about this, but I will, where the one I would call is the failure operating system, this scarcity operating system. This is where we're expecting to fail. We're expecting that we put in work and people won't afford it, or it costs too much, or that people are going to have all these objections. And because we allow the fear of the unknown, the fear of rejection, it stops us in our tracks. And I'll tell you, fear has killed more dreams than failure ever could. Where the other operating system is what I call a success operating system. This is a fundamental belief that we make the decision that I'm going to succeed. It's going to work because it can't not work. All labor there is profit. The Bible says it, and God says His word will not return to Him void. It will accomplish the thing whereto He sent it. So by knowing that when I put in the work, it's going to work. When I invest in this program, I will get a return on investment. Why? Because I will make sure to return. And I'm not too stressed out about the time frame or when. I know that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And it will happen. So sometimes we will hear, people with a scarcity operating system will hear a success story and they're like, oh yeah, but she's beautiful, she's blonde, she's young, she's energetic. I'm not, I'm fat, I'm old, I'm this, I'm black, I'm yellow, I'm from this island, I'm from over here, and we'll make these excuses of why it won't work for me. And we're success operating system, when we hear stories, we're like, well, if she could do it, I can do it. And there's not much of a difference between that person. We start seeing people's success not as getting jealous, not as feeling inferior, not as feeling like, oh, I should be further than myself. And we don't use other people's success as a whip to beat ourselves up and feel so frustrated with how I'm not as far as I should be. We use it as a fuel to be able to say, well, if they can do it, so could I. It's that example of what's possible for me. And by flooding my minds with story after story after story of people who are just like me, instead of focusing on differences, focus on the similarities between their situation, my situation, and be like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And there's no answer to that question other than I can do it, and make the determination to make a success at what we do. It's interesting to me where Psalms chapter 1, it talks about how this man, it says, blessed is a man that walketh not in counsel of the ungodly. Verse 2, it says, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Verse 3, so powerful. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither. And here it is, whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. It's right there. It's in the scriptures. I read that because have you ever seen that some people, it just seems like everything they touch, it just succeeds and it goes so well, where other people, it seems like when they touch things, it crumbles and things don't really work? Or it's like, why is it that people who succeed are thriving at such consistent win after win after win, and people are struggling? It just seems like it's a struggle, and it gets harder and harder. Well, the difference is not about circumstances. It's not about gender, occupation, or it's the operating system that we have cultivated and we decide. It's the decisions we make. Because by having the belief, when I'm about to start a project, I know it's going to work. Because Psalms 1:3 promises that whatsoever my hand touches, it's going to prosper. Why? Because I'm applying the biblical principles. I'm making decisions based on biblical principles, and I'm working those out in my life. I know it's going to work because the principles that I teach work, the principles that I follow. Whereas when we are constantly fearing everything that's going to lose, or that we're going to mess up, or we're going to make a mistake, people won't be happy, these things, they fundamentally discourage us, and we stop taking action and we stop getting those results. So it's the action takers that are the money makers, that are the muscle makers, that are the impact makers. And another lesson I learned from James Malinchak, he's a millionaire mentor of mine. He's been featured on ABC as the Secret Millionaire. He shared something really profound. He said, there is no such thing as a money problem, only a decision problem. And when you really think about that, what he was showing is that a lot of times it's a decision of what we're choosing to allow our focus to be on. If we're focusing on one crisis after another, or if we're focusing on what I don't have, focusing on what, like focus is a decision, focusing on the failure, or we're focusing on the possibility. When we hear a story and we see someone succeeding, do we decide, I can't do that because I'm not, insert whatever excuse so we decide to believe, or do we say, hey, if they could do it, I can do it, and then that's an example of what's possible. That means I can. That's a decision. So also decisions as far as like what are we going to do for work? What are we going to do for making money? Or the decision, I can't afford it. Or the decision, how can I afford it? Where are the resources that I can come up with the funds? And when we see something that's hard or a skill that's new that we're not used to, it's a decision to avoid, to go back to what's comfortable, to do what's familiar, what we've always done. It's like Abraham. He had to leave the land of his familiar, go to a place that is unknown, and start a journey so he can go to the land of his fortune for his family and for future generations. And so many of us were so afraid to leave what is familiar, and that is a decision. It's not a money problem, it's a decision problem. So one of the best decisions that I've learned is to learn how to make different decisions that impact my future. And one of them we could see in Job 3:25. David MacArthur shared this verse with me, and I thought this was profound. He's talking about the law of expectation. In Job 3:25, it says, "For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me." So in other words, he's showing that the very act of being afraid of failure, being afraid of not getting a return on investment, being afraid of it not working, will cause it to come to pass. But by us believing in the future, the possibility, then things start changing. So if you think about, like, so many times we mistakenly believe that the money in our hands is the harvest. The money in our hand is not the harvest, it's the seed. So we want to take that seed and plant for a greater harvest. Could you imagine if a farmer refused to sow the seed because he wanted to be sure that he was going to get a harvest? He wouldn't be able to make any harvest. And that's what a lot of people do. They're so afraid to take action, whether it might be to create a new account, post that message, create a presentation, make an offer, invest in a new coaching program, do something different. We're so afraid because we want to make sure that we're going to get a return on investment. So people are like, well, let me get some sales before I learn or invest in something that's going to teach me to get the sales. And the thing is, like, that's not how it works. We have to actually make the investment of our time, of our knowledge, of our heart, our soul, invest in our finances before we start seeing the harvest. In fact, Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, "He that observeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap." So if we're constantly looking at everything that could go wrong, we're not going to sow the seed and we won't get the harvest. But if you want the harvest to transform lives, to make a difference in people, and share your message with a world that is hurting, they're literally dying for the knowledge that you have, then what I've learned is to expect a return on investment. When you start expecting the returns on your time, your knowledge, your focus, your attention, and only give attention to the outcomes that you desire, then everything starts shifting in your business. And if you're ready to really focus in on your mission and your dream and your service of people you're called to serve, then I'm going to invite you to take advantage of this free health marketing map. And this health marketing map is going to use AI in conversation to walk you through to get extremely clear on what is your offer, who are you serving, what can you do to help them. It's going to walk you through similar questions that I would be asking you if we're on a coaching call. And it's free for you to join. I want to help you to create an offer that can radically not just transform your life, but the lives of the people you're called to serve. Go to www.freegiftfromenoch.com /map. And on here, it'll walk you through. There's a video you could watch that's going to show you exactly what to do step by step, click by click, that's going to help you to craft this program so you too can be another success story. You can change the lives of the people you're looking to serve. And it's free. You could even comment map down below and I'll send you a link. But what we're talking about is stop paying for your dreams with savings and do this instead. And we could see that start counting your expenses in dollars. This is something that's been a huge change. And if you like this, then subscribe, because we release new videos like this each week. And we do this live, so you're welcome to join us live on Zoom. Just look in the description and you could see a link where you could join and participate with what we do, the health marketing webinars. And remember that God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Have a great day and God bless.